Yeah. Do you think that that Black people now are in the sunken place? Do you think of them in that there's part of our culture? There are several people.
I think it's funny. I think the thing that makes me most frustrated, not most, I don't think first of all, I don't think Black people are in the sunken place. I think that, we talked about this before. Black people as a whole, we're not a monolith. And it's funny we talk about, I used to say that on United Shades, and then I heard people say, stop. It's sort of, Black people, we get very quickly tired of the thing once it becomes text.
Yeah.
So like, it's fine when it's not, when we're sort of like, oh, no, that's a good expression. But when it becomes something that white people feel comfortable to say,
yes,
we say like, whoa, we haven't said whoa for over 10 years as a serious thing. Yes. Probably around Ferguson, it was at its high, and then it's sort of like, we said, okay, we're done with that. Black people without a monolith became such a shorthand cut of saying we're all different that I think it became too sort of like ubiquitous. So we are not a monolith, but also that expression is not complicated enough. Yeah. Because we still, as when you talk, I'm gonna quote you from earlier. We still need to move as a unit occasionally, yes, as much as we can.
We need to be thinking monolithically. We need to be able to at least orient ourselves to the parameters of who we are. Yes, similar value systems and all of that. I guess I ask about the relationship to the sunken place because I do think that there's these sort of automatic responses that Black people will have to certain things that don't go any deeper, and they don't resonate to a place that feels like a common language. It's like they just like you might see Karen walk in and it's immediate anger versus like maybe the way we're operating this business, where we're thinking about this business, isn't an invitation for people like a Karen. And I see people like Candace Owens. Well, I don't love or hate Candace. She has the thoughts that she has.
You have no opinion about Candace Owens?
I mean, I have opinions about, like, I think she's putting on a show, personally.
Is it a good show?
It's a terrible fucking show.
Okay, I was just saying, it's not like, I hadn't heard a Black person go, I had no love or hate. I mean, I understand you only try to put her on your...
No, her opinions are a different thing. But when I see her on my screen, my reaction isn't, I want to battle Candace Owens.
Yeah.
My reaction is me move that out of my purview.
I want to battle the ideas. I don't want to battle Candace Owens. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like maybe I'm numb to like the two constantly be in a state of confrontation. And so is that a sunken place is my question.
So I think that one of the problems that we have as a society, but specifically Black people, is that I can open up my phone right now and open up like my Instagram app or my Threads app, and I can see different versions of Black people having the same conversation from different angles. And if I follow this one, I'm like, we're in the sunken place. And if I follow this one, I'm like, oh, we're about to break. We're in the midst of overcoming. And those are happening I think it's because my algorithm is sort of schizophrenic because I just sort of look at lots of things, which I am great about. But so it means that I can turn on, this is a great example of a recent thing. On my algorithm, there are people who are like Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas. She's sort of like having she's sort of like what Cori Bush used to do, sort of like she's the one who's speaking, Black woman who's out in the world, speaking very directly, feet to power, indicting the MAGA Republicans at every turn. It has a little bit of swag or a lot of swag. So she's able to do it in a way that feels like that pops. It goes viral. So she recently called, because she's from Texas, she called the governor of Texas, who's Governor Hot Wheels. And he's in a wheelchair, so that's a very stark image of Governor Hot Wheels. And let's be clear, Governor of Texas is not good to disabled people at all. His policies are anti-disabled. So he is basically the person living with a disability who's anti the disabled community, doesn't do it. So he was disabled, apparently a tree fell on him. So you would think he would have gone through some learning, but he's also a white man from his privilege and wealth, so he doesn't have to learn. Learning is not required to be the governor of Texas. So she calls him Governor Hot Wheels, and there's these two discussions that are on my algorithm. One, yeah, Jasmine, go get him. That's right, Governor Hot Wheels. Yeah, Black people. These are direct quotes, of course. Then there's discussion of people who are like, I'm Black, I'm either part of the disability community or I am an ally or a friend of the disability community. We shouldn't be really insulting disabled. We shouldn't be using people's abilities or their disabilities to insult it. We can insult him in a lot of different ways. We can call him all sorts of, we can call him outside of his name. We can call him everything but a child of God, but don't use disability as a way to insult him. Yeah. So these are two different conversations by two groups of people who allegedly have the same goal. So these black people don't like him and will use any tactic they can think of to make him feel bad. Like, so we'll talk about his mama, we'll talk about his limp, talk about his whatever, talk about his mama's limp, whatever. I will talk about whatever I need to talk about if I think it's going to make you feel bad or if I think it's funny enough.
Where do you land on those? Where do you land?
So it's funny. So I'm a stand-up comedian originally trade. Okay. So I do have this sort of like, if it's funny enough, but like, you know what I mean? So I do, but also if your job's not to be funny, then funny enough isn't really the method. Right. So like as a comedian, you're literally supposed to get away with things that people aren't supposed to get away with at their office, at their meeting at the office. Yeah. But unfortunately, we're starting to blur all these lines, and now politicians know I can't go viral unless I sort of do some things that are going to appeal on social media. And so it's great. So Jasmine Crockett is playing this sort of like dangerous game of like, and she called Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, you know, she was like a bleach blonde, blah, blah, blah. But one thing she said was butch body.
I remember that.
And then some of the members of the butch women community are like, hey,
our bodies are.
That's not an insult. These are what we want. We want our bodies to be butch. And so again, like that's not bleach blonde baby, but not butch body, you know. And so, and I had to talk with someone else. I was like, look, I get that. I think Jasmine Crockett is like, I'm going to say the thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene probably does not want to think of herself as having a butch body. Therefore, I'm going to say a thing is going to hurt her feelings. But in the end, there's also collateral damage.
Yes.
So that's all I have to say. So as a comedian who's also has a history of activism and likes hanging out with activists and came up with like stand-up comedians and ethics studies majors in equal measure, like in my soul circle.
Which is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was like the smart comedian and the dumb guy with the epic studies stage. So I think that like, I don't know that Jasmine, if she keeps playing that game, I don't know that it's going to give her the life in politics that she ends up wanting. You may go viral for a few moments, but you might not be able to ascend to the next level.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be too much tape on you.
I see that.
It's like you can say all this stuff, but I don't know that there's a long-term.
It's the slavery meme. It's the equivalent of.
Yeah.
You dress up, that's it. It's like no, this is going to be who you are.
This is going to be your. And I would say this, like, so I just would, if I was in her corner, I'd be like, are you really thinking this through? And if you are, go for it. And maybe I'm wrong, but you're sort of like, what you're now doing is like dividing people who should all be in your base.
Yeah.
Because like the black people who are allies with the disabled community or black people who are disabled, they love when you indict the right. Yeah. And they want it right for you.
But like not at the cost.
Not at the cost of their own dignity or the dignity of their friends. And so I think that like, for me, there's a thing that like I as a comedian years ago went through this thing like for example, this is a small thing. I don't generally say the word bitch on stage. Only because a friend of mine pointed out that like you don't say it that often. So when you say it, it's super loud. Like you're not a guy who's like, there's a way in which certain comedians, bitch, nigga, da, 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 and it's sort of all even the way that like, so when you say it, it feels like, ooh, you just,
he just sawed us up in our seats.
Yeah. That's not, doesn't sound like it. And so I was like, and I realized I had a joke that had that punchline, and I was like, at first I pushed back, but I was like, you're not wrong. I'm not a comic I'm not like, nobody's gonna call me foul mouth. Now I'll swear and say the F word and I'll say the N word if I need to. But that word specifically, I feel like there is enough of a thing around it that like, I don't need it. And also a lot of times it's like, the challenge is, can you write a joke that's funny without that? So that becomes the challenge. So for me, it's like, I have now gotten to the point of like, if I'm going to insult you, I'm going to try to make sure I don't step on the toes of anybody who doesn't need to be insulted. That's what I'm trying to do. So like,
which I think is honorable. That's like an honorable path. Even in the midst of being comedic and likely at the expense of someone, you're still trying to navigate like honorable path.
Yeah, I have a Substack, and I just wrote a Substack where I was like, I'm going to try to think of as many insults for Steve Bannon as I can.
There you go.
So I want to hurt his feelings. Time to hurt guns. But I'm going to see if I can be creative about it. Yeah. And feel like I can stand behind all of them. And without feeling like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have called. And down to like, and now I just think people are going to think this is annoying, this is stupid. But like this morning, I was like, I was going to use the word numbskull. I'm like, where did that come from?
Where did that come?
I was in the middle of Googling it before. I don't know. But I just sort of like, that's the way my brain works now. Like, I'm like, hey, is that a thing? Because, a lot of these things started out as medical terms for ways to describe people who had mental difficulties.
And so you do. Well, I generally think that Black folks are a little bit too unserious, or not, or maybe that the space for seriousness and the space for unseriousness occupy the same room too often.